Welcome to another episode of Come Together. And we're live again. Hello, welcome, Candice. I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks
Yes,
for doing this.
I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for reaching out.
Of course, of course, of course. Yeah, it's been funny because I have been when I cold email people, um, I I think I get maybe 30% response rate approximately, right? Which is not
Okay.
bad. But then it goes up like a bunch when I follow up, even just once. And like like it lets people know that I'm not just a bot or some kind of spam email letting them know what's, just reaching out to them. Um,
It's like I
but
said, you're a real life person.
yeah, that's right. It's two-factor authentication. It's one
Exactly.
email and two emails. Want to tell me just a little bit about yourself, and then we can kind of talk about everything we want to talk about.
Yeah, sure. So, I am in the ecosystem of health and well-being. I'm married to an amazing man with three children. They're three sons. They're 27, 24, and 20. So it's really been an incredible journey of blending parenthood with the whole ecosystem of health and well-being and where we're at. I'm passionate about animals, children. I love the business that we're in. I love making a difference in people's lives. And getting to speak to people like yourself who are so interested and are curious always makes it exciting and different to have these kind of conversations.
Definitely, yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I that's kind of what pushed me to get started doing this. One of the main factors was like I just feel like I just need more interesting people and types of people in my life, and I used to travel quite a bit for work when I was single. And it was pretty much voluntary. I didn't really need to if I didn't want to, but I sell medical equipment, and if there's a big ultrasound machine or a DEXA machine going to customer, then I'd take an opportunity, either take a road trip or I'd meet the customer when the freight company arrived, and I got to check out some awesome, awesome cities around the country, big cities, small cities, and I love just stopping in like I would ask where locals hang out, and then I would just stop by wherever like the local scene was, whether it's a bar or a coffee shop or just wherever main people would hang out, and I love talking to people, and it was every America's amazing because there's each like town and city and state has like so much of their own personalities and so much of their own like style of human flavor of human that I was like I got to just keep on doing more of this. I think this is amazing, so it kind of pushed me to start.
Well, you know what? I mean, to that point, the exciting thing about the US is that literally every city is like its own country. And the opportunity to travel and just this melting pot of immigrants,
Hmm.
which really the foundation of what the US is all about, is just so interesting from the culture to the food to the colors, the smells, the architecture. It's really an exciting place. And the luxury and the privilege to travel and meet
Yeah.
these people and live like a local is what grows. It grows your passion. It just grows your outlook and it just gives you a different perspective on the world.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think that I love touristy things too because they exist for a reason. Cliches are fun,
Absolutely.
but like I feel like you get down to like the real rawness and real grittiness, and I feel the same thing actually about like, and I noticed that what I liked about the podcasting world was it could be as authentic as you want it to be. It could be as polished as you want it to be. It could be as raw as you want it to be. And there's no right or wrong. It's just whatever your flavor is, and then just go and go find it. Have you got a chance? When did you said you told me you came to the States, what, 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, absolutely. In December of 2020. And
Good timing.
tell me about it, especially because I'm from South Africa originally, and we had like really hectic lockdowns. Like we weren't allowed to leave our homes. Only one person was allowed to go to the grocery store at a time, and unless you were an essential worker, literally, essentially, you weren't allowed to move. And so when we arrived, nobody was wearing a mask, kids were in school, businesses were open, people were out celebrating, and we were like, what happened? Was
Yeah.
this, did this really just only happen in South Africa? But obviously we know that it didn't. So yeah,
So it
so
started. So COVID started in South Africa before it hit the States.
no, it was all at the same time.
It was all around the same time.
Yeah, I mean, there was talk about it,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden it literally just spread. One minute they were
Yeah.
talking about there was this thing happening in the US, and then the next minute there was patient number one, I think, in South Africa that had been in France and came, and then it was just like wildfire in the whole world. You kind of just watched like this domino
That was
effect.
crazy. That was
Everybody like
crazy.
closing down, right? And it was, wow, what just happened? So when we arrived, it was, oh my goodness gracious me, this is just crazy. So it was a good place to be during COVID, to see that people functioned and lived, and despite all the stories we were being told, life was continuing and people were doing life, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, some people were, some people were. Yeah. I was living at the time. I was living in Washington, in Seattle. I lived there for a year with my friends, and it's actually funny because I was never, ever, ever really politically aware in general, and so
Okay.
like when I had told friends and family that I was moving to Seattle, I would get very mixed responses based on what, what my friend, who I was talking to. Um, but I never really thought that it would impact, like, it never really did impact day to day life, right? So I was like, okay, so let's say it's a predominantly left city. Like, who cares? Like, that doesn't affect me when I go to the supermarket and I'm saying hi to the cashier. It doesn't affect the group of friends I'm going to choose to hang out with, or the beer I'm going to drink, or the weed I'm going to smoke. Like, none of that matters. So, but then when COVID hit, you got to see really the different responses across the states, also, which was fun and really, really interesting to observe. And what I thought was cool was that. Um, I was going back and forth between New York and Washington at that point. I'm originally from New York, and then I was living in Washington. And in New York, life did just come to like a grinding halt, and that was it. In Washington, I don't know whether there's something about West Coast mentality or not. Um, in Washington, people were like essentially shut down, but people were still continuing life outdoors and doing their best to like kind of keep on living. And so, our days actually became full of, and at that point I was still working from home, our days became full of walks to the park and going down to the lake and, hanging out in our backyard. And like, if you want to have friends over, you don't hang out in front of a TV, you hang out in the backyard because that's open space, it's safe, whatever it is. And it just turned out to have been awesome in that kind of manifestation, in the way it manifested. So it's cool to, like, again, the state's eclecticness, to see the different responses even.
And I think to that point about, you spoke about connecting and connection and hanging out with people. So many people in the very harsher environments lost that level of connection, and really craved that human connection. And people became introverted, and people became scared, and people became
Hmm.
so isolated that they isolated themselves. And it's taken a lot of people a long time to open themselves up again, to trust being with people,
They're
and
still
to
trying. They haven't
experience.
done it yet.
Yeah, from little kids to teenagers, that gap in time where there were really harsh restrictions in place pulled people apart. It didn't
Yeah.
build them. And well, we're blessed that we're not in this space and time anymore, and please God, we never will be. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
What was it like as a parent observing at that point? It would have been what, like a 15-year-old, 20-year-old, and like 18-year-old. I mean, it's actually funny because my siblings are, I'm 29, my youngest sibling is 14,
Oh,
and
what?
we were all home around the same time.
Right.
But I'm curious about the consequences. Do you notice educationally, socially,
So,
habits?
yeah, so it was interesting because we had planned our move to the US, and I had given school for my youngest. I'd given them notice, and basically lockdown happened, and I'd given them notice, and pretty much a few weeks later he was ending school. So it was the first time that the US had ever had an international student online. So he then
Mhm.
changed his hours. He came onto American time. We were going to bed, and he was just in the middle of his school day. And
Whoa.
we'd waking up in the morning, and he'd be sleeping because he had just finished homework. So that was a real change. And he was living the US life virtually. Um,
How'd you
seeing,
like that?
sorry?
Did he like it?
He did. I mean, he's a very curious person, with lots of bold opinions and views. And so to have that, like, um, that look into a world that he was going into,
Mhm.
but wasn't quite present in it, was exciting for him. And of course, it was totally different, and the whole educational system is different. So he kind of led an American life and on his own time zone. And then my two older boys, the middle one had just finished high school and had applied to college in the US and had gotten in and couldn't come, and so had to defer. And my
Uh-huh.
oldest had finished his undergrad, and he looked, and he was coming for his master's in the US, and same thing, had to defer. So watching the two older guys, they landed up doing a course. They landed up brainstorming, like where to, what next, kind
Mhm.
of tapping into their personal genius and entrepreneurial spirits. And we
How
had a good
involved are
time.
you in that process? Are you and your husband in that process? In
Sorry,
their
just
create, how involved are you guys in their process in terms of like what to do next? Do they welcome your input? Do you guys let
uh,
them kind of just do their own thing? How does that work?
so we have always been like completely open, transparent. We talk about everything. We nothing is off limits as far as discussions are concerned. But it was a collective decision as a family to come to the US. Everybody had bought in coming to the US,
Mhm.
and so that was easy. But what do you do with these beautiful young minds that are bright and eager and full of adventure, new possibilities, and then you shut down and they can't go anywhere?
Mhm.
So watching them embrace, as I said, doing a couple of courses. We when we got wind what was happening, we set up a home gym. So, the whole focus went into, keeping ourselves fit and healthy and just having endless conversations. And it was around about that time where we came up with a name, for our business that we have in the US. And it was a time of a lot of growth and opportunity and getting to know each other without any interruptions. And I
Yeah.
know that sounds crazy and weird, but with the everyday humdrum of life, you never get down into those real deep, beautiful conversations. And the gift of that situation was that's exactly what we had.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds awesome. It sounds like it's funny because I feel like COVID was either, especially the beginning, like the first like couple of months was either the best thing to happen to a lot of families or the worst thing to happen to people. I mean, I know the divorce rate exploded, alcoholism exploded, you know, I, friends, family members, everyone was ripping each other's heads off. Or having the best time in the entire world, and like it was very, very rarely that there was like a middle ground. But I think what was so interesting looking back about it, and I think there was even a kind of sense of awareness of it at the time, is how much fat there is on our day-to-day life that could just be like cut out that we don't necessarily need. And that has to do with our jobs, that has to do with whether going to the supermarket over or doing errands versus spending time with our family. Oh, there are alternative methods for that kind of stuff to get done. Could it be done effectively and while building your relationships and like pursuing your hobbies and passions? And like I think that starting 2020, March 2020 till today, people are real like in the US. There's been movements I've seen all over the place now for 4-day work weeks. Like we don't need 5 days, like we don't need 6 days, we don't need 7 days. Like and people are talking about how remote jobs are good or bad. By the way, I see your expression, and I'll let you. I'm curious. I'm curious what you think of that, but I think that it's almost inevitable that as technology gets better and we find ourselves a little bit more obsolete in terms of like the way the world just runs, that we can either choose to be disciplined and effective and loving and human, or we're going to be, you know, alcoholics that are, you know, that are bored out of our minds and breaking up, you know, and the divorce rate will fly up, and like there'll probably be a little bit of both, you know. But yes, what do you think?
So, I think what COVID did do, and not to linger on the whole COVID thing, is that it really brought the world to one point where everybody was happy to use any form of technology to connect, right? So all of a sudden, you don't have to be in person to attend a meeting. You don't have to wait to get on that flight to see somebody. It allowed, and it does allow for immediate interaction as we're having today. But what it doesn't replace is that you can't build a culture unless you're together.
I'm sorry about that. That was my fault.
No, no
Anyway,
problem at
continue
all.
your thought. I'm sorry, please.
No worries. So, as I was saying, not to linger on the COVID thing because we've come so far. It did allow us all to be able to connect globally. You don't have to jump on a plane. You can have a meeting, you can connect like we are doing today, and you feel like you're with the person, and it's to a level quite intimate. However, it doesn't allow you to build a culture from a business perspective. If everybody's placed all over the world and all over the country, you can't build a culture, and
Hmm.
that can never be replaced. The human connection can never be replaced.
Right.
Sitting in front of somebody, seeing their emotions and seeing how they do things and working collaboratively is what counts. So whilst I think that there's a place for it, nothing will ever replace human one-on-one contact, and we need it.
We do, but I think that a lot of people are not fortunate enough to have their place of work be the place where they have their emotional connections or even like positive connections, you know. And so for those people, you know, I have friends, for example, that are accountants that don't need to be in the office, except, and there are particular times of the year where busy season they do, and they do say, listen, it works a lot better when there's a hustle in the air and
Yeah.
there's an enthusiasm and like, and it's wonderful. But for the other 7 months of the year or 6 months of the year when it's dead, you know, and they don't have to go in, then the benefit is that I've worked remotely with friends before. You know, like when I moved to Washington, I was with three other friends. All of us were single. All of us were doing different professions, and three of us were in the house 90% of the day. You know,
Were you
and
productive?
we got that best friendship. You know, we were able to all, you know, we were able to hang out and we did our own things and we go together, and so it gives us the flexibility to be able to kind of pursue those friendships if we're not lucky enough to have them at work. But if work is your culture, and like work is that, like if you're a teacher, if you're you know, if you're you know, if you work at a gym, you're working at a very people forward kind or people facing position, then you definitely want that culture and you definitely want to be embodied, you know.
Yeah, and but to your point, you were living with friends, and so you could nurture relationships. A lot of people live on their own.
Yeah.
They live with a spouse. And so, how much productivity is there really? How much are they getting from the person they're with, or there is nobody with them but a dog? In some cases, there isn't even a dog.
Right.
So their level of productivity isn't there, and their level of being needed. And there's
Hmm.
something about being needed, being that little cog in the wheel, that pulls everything together. Without that, some people really, really struggle.
True. Yeah, yeah. I think it depends on the job. I think it depends on the
Yeah.
person on the job. But I think that it's a really cool. Like, it was inconceivable even 10 years ago. You know, the kind of flexibility that we have,
Yeah.
or you know, when people started realizing that Instacart was an option for getting, you know, groceries, and instead of me spending 45 minutes going to the supermarket to get a couple of things for dinner, you know, we can order that, and I could put my kids to bed at night. Like that's such a, you know, and that changes everything. It really does, and it could change our connections. So I'm excited about. I think that so you know, COVID, good or bad, or you know, whatever it was at the end of the day, I think like everything in the world, you could take. You know, there's good you could take from it. There's not. Um, so there's so many things I wanted to talk to you about. Um,
Walk away.
what,
I'm listening.
let's talk about parenting a little bit. What have you learned raising three boys Um, the oldest being 27, you said?
Yeah, oldest being 27, 24. Well, he turns 27 in 3 weeks'
Sure.
time, and 20. Yeah.
So tell me if you have recommendations, right? General rules that you found worked or didn't work in terms of raising your kids. You want to elaborate on some of these ideas?
Yeah, sure, with pleasure. So one thing I do know for sure, you don't get a manual when you're a parent, right? So it- it's something that comes from within, and you as a parent do the best that you can. Um, and you're just given the privilege of just growing these beautiful gifts, and children are, and I said earlier, an absolute privilege and gift to have around. For me as a parent, I have found that what has worked for me is always being the adult in the room, not responding badly to situations, right? Um, Children act out, they say things, they do things for attention. And you don't want to meet that need with negative feedback, right?
Hmm.
So from my perspective, is always showing up for my kids in whichever shape, way, or form that they need. Always knowing that no matter what, I have their back. I may not like their behavior or what they've done, but I'll always love them. I'll always bat for them. But they need to stand accountable for what they do and say as well. And they have to develop their own sense of who they are, and not just follow the status quo. Um,
How do you encourage that?
when they talk to you about their own needs and desires, and when they were younger, when they were at school, if they had uncomfortable run-ins with their friends, or typical school ground situations, is listening, and questioning and asking, and not blaming, and letting them come to conclusions on their own, and troubleshooting and what ifs, and just listening and holding space for
Hmm.
them, I have found to be very advantageous. And even now, it's like, do you want me to listen? Do you want me to give you input? Whatever you need from me, you tell me what you want. And kind of growing up and being with my boys in that respect, I was privileged. When they were young, I was with them. It was beautiful to watch how three different people had three different needs, and still have
Hmm.
three different needs, and I have to address all three of them differently. And just there's something about gentle parenting, um, which is a beautiful thing. And especially having boys, people think you got to be super tough, and boys are rough and rugged, and they can handle everything. Boys still need to be dealt with gently. Boys need to be taught
Boys are
how
so
to
sensitive.
so sensitive.
Crazy. It's crazy.
Right, but they need to be taught how to treat women. They need to be taught that chivalry isn't a dying art. They need to
Have you
know.
always known this? Have you have you like did you is this something that you had learned or read about or picked up as like you were being a parent throughout the years, or is that something that you knew going into being a parent? So like when you're or was it because I know for example like my mom has a very similar perspective to you.
Yeah,
When I was 5, she did not have that perspective, that she has now, and but I know that she, we're a family of Orthodox Jews,
yeah,
and I know that she spends a lot of time contemplating and working on her mannerisms and her personality and her personality traits, and she's always trying to be better and learn more about people and herself and how to be a better mom. Um, but That's I feel like that's a pretty rare thing. I feel like that's not what every mom in the world is like, and it's wonderful to hear that you're describing the same thing. But did you
yeah.
always have that, or is that something that came to you over the years?
I so desperately wanted to be a mom. I mean, for me, that was like one of the highest accolades and an absolute privilege to be able to be called mom. So I went in with very clear ideas and routines and disciplines and principles and all these things that I wanted for my children, thinking that they were absolutely the right way. But as I said, you know, each child presented with different needs and wants. And so I had to evolve how I was from my first one to my second one to my third one.
Was
Um,
that hard?
you know, initially I wasn't really aware of it, but as their little personality started developing,
Hmm.
then it was like, okay, well, actually, you come from the same DNA. I cannot believe that you come from three different planets. But yes, absolutely. So it was and it wasn't. I more celebrated seeing how individual they really were and trying to meet them where they were at with their needs. And to your mom's point of trying to grow and better ourselves and be more present for my children as they've gotten older. Of course, my parenting style has evolved and it
Hmm.
will continue to evolve. I was having a conversation with one of my sons today, and that's exactly what I was saying. You never stop parenting, but your parenting style evolves, and you you go into different relationships at different times with your children, and it's exciting. And
I
I
think
just
that yeah, yeah. Go ahead, please. You didn't.
yeah, it's just remarkable that there isn't a rule book. And it's remarkable that what worked when they were 5 didn't work when they were 8. And so we go along the way. I think too, a lot of parents feel under pressure and they feel very stressed about seem to be doing the right thing, seem to be the perfect parents. It's not about being perfect. It's just about being good enough. It's about being there for your children, loving them. It's about helping them to see what lies within them and helping them to know that it's okay to make a mistake and start again. And I'm sure in 5 years' time, I would have evolved more and my children will get better things out of me then than they did when they were younger. But what I do know is that they're a gift. I love being a mom. And just if there are moms listening out there, just be kind to yourself.
Mhm.
Just love them and laugh with them. It's not so serious. It doesn't have to be perfect. But
You
keep
think a lot of people need to hear that?
learning. Sorry,
You think a lot of people need to hear that?
they do. I think a lot of people do need to hear that.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder what contributes to that. I wonder why. Because it's so like one of the things I was talking to my friend. You know, I'm one of for some of my friends. It's funny. I have different feet in different worlds, and depending on what world I'm in, my conversations with my friends are super super different with one another. And one friend was asking me what it's like to have a kid because I'm 29 with a 2 year old and a 1 month old, and so I'm at the starting point over here.
Yeah.
And one of the things he asked me, like maybe 3 or 4 months into my son being born was for my oldest being born was, what's the most surprising thing to you? And I said, it's really really hard, but I'm surprised how, like, I usually have a low tolerance for for challenging things, and like mentally, like I'm like I don't want to do things, and I was like, it's amazing how um I want to do the hard work. I want to do the hard stuff, and like it's not fun. Like I can't tell you like it's fun waking up in the middle of the night, but like when you wake up in the middle of the night and like you're there for that moment, and the kid goes back to bed, and like everything is good again, and you know that had been responsible. You've responded to the situation appropriately, like that's like that's the best thing you could do for yourself, and but I also feel like it comes naturally. So I wonder what happens along the way that people kind of lose that labor of love.
I'm not so sure it's about losing the labor of love. I think a lot of parents have very demanding careers. Um,
Yeah.
Sometimes they're in ill health themselves.
Hmm.
Sometimes they're struggling emotionally or mentally and they don't know how to show up for their kids. I mean, there's a lot of reasons. I don't think any parent knowingly or wantingly wants to give up,
Right.
but we sometimes people take their life experiences from when they were growing up, and they copy and paste it, and they aren't able to break a cycle, so they perceive parenthood to be a hard thing. They don't necessarily deal with their own baggages or stories that they came from, and so it's hard. And then the other parents where they go, hey, this is how I grew up. It was great, but I feel like I can do it differently. I feel like I want more from it.
Hmm.
And I feel that you have a duty and responsibility to show up in the best way, shape, and form that you can. And there is no right or wrong way. If
Hmm.
your intentions are honorable and good and full of love, and it's full of nurture, and it's full of fun, and of course you've got to have rules and boundaries in place. But this is a beautiful time, as you know right now, and your days are very long, right?
Hmm.
But these years are so few, and then you're out of it. Everybody's sleeping, and everybody's eating, and everybody's at sport, and everybody's got friends, and their bat mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs and celebrations, and everything's happening, right?
Yeah.
And then all those years that you went, "Phew, I wish this part would hurry up," they're gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you
It
remember the
does.
movie? Did you watch the Adam Sandler movie Click? Do you remember that movie?
Vaguely, but I'm a
So the
huge
premise of the movie, it's supposed to be a comedy. I watched it. I watched it once and I never revisited it because it made me cry and feel so intensely that I was like, I'm not prepared. I don't know if I'm ever willing to do that to myself again, but it's a Adam Sandler comedy drama-ish. And the premise is that he gets this remote that he could like fast forward his way through life, but he can't go back at a certain point. And so, and then the thing learns from him, and so it learns what to skip and learns what to deal with or not. And he skips his fights with his wife initially, and he's having so much fun with it. And he's skipping, having to pick his kid up from school. I don't want to deal with that. Let me just fast forward to when that's over. And then at the end, like, and then basically he skipped all of his responsibilities, which was essentially his whole life. And then he just woke up and he was an old man. He was about to die, and that was it. And I mean, it wasn't a very subtle metaphor at all. I mean, it was extremely not subtle in a very Adam Sandler kind of way. But I remember, I think I was maybe 15 or 16 years old, and I was in my room. It was like 9 or 10 p.m. Saturday night, and I'm just bawling my eyes out, and and I was like, I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want that to happen to me. But time is something I always had. I think since one of my biggest fears in general in life is that I'm gonna run out of time before I do everything I want to do, and so I try to cram everything in all the time, which leads to burnout a lot. But I'm learning to balance that and change the mentality that by burning out, I'm actually holding myself back longer than if I just let myself go a little easier, while I'm going.
And also being in the moment.
That
It's
too.
right. It's like
Yes.
always being behind the camera, capturing the perfect moment, but the moment came and went,
Yes, yes,
and
yes.
you actually were present.
That's right. That's right. I've noticed that. Yeah, and the last probably 2.5 3 months of my life had been like that. Um, and I hear and I guess it's a good thing to talk about, and I think that it's really important and relatable, and I think that a lot of people have this feeling too. So. Um, I don't even feel like I even can cut anything out to like make my to be like, I don't know where to even begin to make myself be more present in the moment. Like I think that being in the moment requires effort, right? But if you're burnt out because you're expending all your effort on other things, but I just don't know what to cut out. I can't cut out being a husband. I can't cut out working. I can't cut out being a dad. I can't cut out being healthy and exercising. So like, it's I think I understand why a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah, and I think again, it's you got to be gentle on yourself and be kind to yourself and prioritize. Like everything you want to do, do you have to do it today? Can you space it out? I know a little while ago when you and I had a chat, you said Shabbos is such a special time for you because it's your time to connect with your family and your community and spend time together. And if one 24-hour period in a week affords you that, you're a rich man.
You think so?
Absolutely. Right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when people live in the same home, people can go days and weeks without talking. Just the mundanities of life, and your Shabbos gives you an opportunity to really, really connect at a deeper level, because you're not watching TV, you're not on
Yeah.
social media, you're not doing anything but being present with the people around you, having great conversations, playing games together, sharing memories, talking about family times and things like that. It's a special time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that in itself is a great thing, and we do busy our lives. um like you said, you've got Instacart now. You can order the meal and get to spend time and bath your baby and put him to bed at night, right?
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
you had to go do grocery shopping, you wouldn't be able to do that. So
Yeah.
I think it's about also picking and choosing where your priorities actually lie, and you don't have to do everything every day.
Yes.
There's some things that you can just skim a little bit of, but not when it comes to your health and well-being. That's
Definitely
always
not.
got to be a priority.
I want to talk about that a little bit. Should we talk about health and well-being a little bit?
Sure.
Sure.
Let's
Well,
go.
why don't you lead the way of what you think a typical healthy day for your average Joe should be, or you can tell me about your healthy day like your ideal healthy day.
So for me, my typical healthy day is um, waking up from a good night's sleep, right?
Good
And
night's sleep.
for me, that's
So
around.
your good day starts the previous night.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right? Because it sets the tempo for my day. If I've
Mhm.
had a good night's sleep and I've had good recovery, I wake up, I'm feeling energized, I'm feeling motivated, and um, I'll have some of my supplements and water and a good cup of coffee, and I'll go down
What
to the gym.
supplements do you take? Like
Oh,
vitamins?
I take vitamins. I
A
absolutely
lot
love.
of them.
Well, I've got a few in my toolbox that I do like to take. Yeah, I take vitamins and I take some supplements. I really like Rehydrate. One of my favorite being Element. I find that
Mm.
it really boosts me. I
Do you feel
definitely
a tangible difference in your day when you started with Element or not?
completely. I
Really?
I really, really do. I think that balance of sodium and the electrolytes and everything, just it fuels my body, it nourishes my body. It definitely helps me with focus and it gives me energy.
So
So
if I were to wake up, right, I prefer to jog in the morning, especially this time of year, right? It's
it's a
miserable
perfect.
outside. So it's either early morning or late at night. I wake up, I roll over, have a cup of water with element in it, and immediately it's good. I'm energized for my run, or I feel like it has an immediate impact on my overall performance.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way? Because I mean, I feel that
No,
way.
no, I haven't taken element before,
Oh,
actually.
you
That's what I'm
haven't?
asking.
Oh,
No, I'm
oh,
asking.
okay.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
asking.
you're
I'm
asking.
asking.
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely do. Um, it definitely energizes me. I feel like my body's nourished enough for me to go out and train in the morning, whether it's a run, whether I'm doing strength training, whether I'm just going for a walk, whatever I do.
Mhm.
Um, for me, it definitely works. So I'll wake up, I'll do that, I'll have my coffee with my collagen in it, and I'll go for a workout, whether, as I said, that's strength training, a run on the bike, whatever I'm going to do. I just love the process of moving my body. I love feeling strong. I love feeling vibrant. So having a good workout. And I'm also at the stage in my life where if I can only get 20 minutes in or 30 minutes in today, it's good enough. I'd rather go do that than not do anything.
Yeah.
Come back and take a shower and have a good protein rich meal. For me, protein is really the food that sustains me. And I feel it builds muscle for me. And
Do
it
you have
gives.
do you have a big breakfast, a big breakfast, or a medium sized breakfast, or do you have a bigger lunch? How do you space out your meals?
So typically I have 3 meals a day, and I eat like a king for breakfast, a prince for lunch, and a pauper for dinner.
You do.
I'm least hungry by the end of the day. Um, the beginning part of the day is I'm like super hungry, and if I get the right macros in the morning, I'm golden for the day. If I don't eat right in the morning, the rest of
So
the day.
bread, eggs, yogurts, stuff like that.
So no, I pretty much eat more of a, I love smoothies
Hmm.
with like chia seeds and flax seeds and a good protein powder and a nut butter. So fiber, fat, fiber, protein. I get all of that in, and I find that that satiates me. And then lunch is always a protein and vegetables. Um, and dinner again, something lighter, but protein and vegetable heavy for me. So I choose that. It works for me. It sustains my muscles. It helps me with muscle growth, especially being I'm in my 50s. So, for a woman to protect her body as she gets older, and for a man as well, you
Hmm.
need protein, you need strong bones, you need strong muscles, you've got to be able to carry your body weight, um, and your nutrition feeds into that. I'm very much eating the rainbow. I don't subscribe to processed foods at all. I don't
Okay.
yeah, I don't do processed foods. I try and limit sugar as much as possible. I do read labels. I'm one of those people
Do
that
you ever
also,
get sick?
thank God, not often.
Yeah.
I'm healthy.
Yeah.
Um, and I monitor my metabolic health very, very closely.
Oh, do you?
Uh, yeah, I really do. And I
How do
have
you
a
do that? How does someone measure their? How does someone keep track of their metabolic health?
So I have a functional medicine doctor, so I prefer to go down that route than a traditional doctor. I like to understand the science behind things, and I love to understand how my body's working and almost have a helicopter view, not just looking at, I've come in with a sore throat. Well, here we go, off you go.
Hmm.
I kind of want to understand the whole ecosystem of my body. So I have my bloods done every 6 months,
Okay.
and I use a company called Function Health,
Mhm.
and they put it in a dashboard for me, and I'm able to track and monitor.
You sound like a Huberman advertisement with Element and Function and everything like
Oh no,
that.
well I'm not trying to be, but
I know it's excellent. I think it's amazing. It's amazing that you keep track of all this because I
yeah,
think that I noticed. I want you to continue in a second. I just noticed that when you hear at first about everything that you're doing, it's the most overwhelming thing in the world. Um, And I think that in reality, it's just if you just think, I just want to be a little bit healthier today than I was yesterday, and like you just live every day like that, you kind of find that you kind of fall into a general pattern that's pretty easy to maintain anyway. Like, I'm sure you don't think very much about how difficult your routine is to maintain while you're doing it every day, all the time. You're like, this is what I love to do this, and it feels good, and you're being healthy and taking care of yourself.
absolutely. And I think if you want anything in life, the hard work's never the hard part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? It's committing to it.
Yeah.
And I often tell people it's progress over perfection. Don't be hard on yourself. I was having a chat with the gentleman yesterday, and he was saying, well, I lost 90 pounds 2 years ago, and then 2 weeks ago I started again. But then I remember when I lost the 90 pounds, the one night I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and then I fell off the wagon. And I said, and? He said, well, then I let the wagon roll away. And I said, and? He said, and then I just let it all go. And I said, why? Why didn't you just enjoy the peanut butter and jelly sandwich and your next meal get back on it?
Yeah.
And I do feel that people are very hard on themselves. And if they're not committed 105,000%, then it's just not good enough. And so then why even do it?
Yeah.
And it's, as you say, and every day just committing to being healthier is what I strive for. So I don't see it as work, but I see the benefits in my body and where I'm at my age and where I want to go, and
Yeah.
I want to age young.
That's
So
I think, and there's no doubt you will, right? I mean, I can't imagine anything. I mean, and you can go the rest of your day, rest of this ideal, healthy day, but nothing in this says you shouldn't be running around till you're 110 years, 110 years old if you keep doing this. I mean,
as long as you're healthy, I mean, there's no
yeah,
point in reaching 110 if you're not
that's the point.
healthy.
Right, right. My grandfather was 92 or three, and he was walking 3 or 4 miles a day. He lived alone, took care of himself, cleaned the house himself. Um, and he just always took care. And he always ate. Like, he was never crazy about anything. He just always ate clean and very simple, and went for his walks and took care of everything and did jumping jacks. And 92, 93 was just totally, totally healthy. So I can imagine that, like, living, avoiding processed foods, moving around, you know, by the way, taking vitamins is something I started doing. I look forward to it. Like, I'm excited about it, and I've never felt older than when I say that. But like, it's true, and like, like I take vitamin D and vitamin C and iron, and and it's actually probably one of the things I feel like, talk about how you actually feel the impact. I've combated getting sick so many times in the last month and a half, with just making sure to get a good night's sleep. Like, when I really feel like the wave's about to crash down on me, I get a good night's sleep. I take I take my vitamins every day, and I get outside, I get some fresh air, and it just pushes it off and pushes it off, and it slowly recedes each day, and then you're back to normal again. It's crazy. It's really
Yeah.
amazing.
And again, you're taking care of yourself, you're listening to your body, you're getting sleep, you're getting outside, you're getting natural sunlight, you're getting fresh air, and you're listening to your body. And especially at your stage, it's very, very challenging because your kids are so young. So they coming home with, especially the older one, I'm sure he's in creche in play school. So
Yeah.
he's coming home with all the bugs. So your immune system is fighting as much as his little immune system is. So to keep yourself healthy is amazing. Um,
Trying.
well,
Fingers
again,
crossed. Knock on wood. You're
we
doing
can
doing
carry
what you
on doing that.
can.
Yeah, protecting our guts and building our immunity is critical. And exercising, moving our bodies is a gift and it's a superpower. So if you can carry on doing all those things and throwing in some extra things, if you have access to a sauna or to a cold plunge or just standing under a cold shower.
Do you do that? You sauna and cold plunge?
I do, I do. I used to be a lot better at cold plunging, but my body absolutely loves the heat. So I really go for the heat. I love the detoxification of a sauna. I love the muscle recovery that I feel when I'm in the sauna. I feel like
Hmm.
relaxed. I know it's good for me cardiovascularly. Um, and if the red light therapy is in there, I know it's good for my skin. And so I love that kind of thing. The cold's amazing as well. The rush of endorphins, and if you've got aches and pains, it's really great for bringing down your inflammation in your body. So all those different modalities just play into that whole ecosystem of living a healthy life.
Hmm.
None of them are 100% essential, but if you can throw them in, then great.
Yeah. So when you're coaching people, um, all this, it's so funny because all this sounds like a lot, and I understand where everyone in the world's coming from, because I was this way. My wife kind of got on the health. Like, I always wanted to be healthy. About 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, I went to the doctor, and I'm 6'4", and they're like, you're 225. You're just on the edge of overweight, like, just there, and like just below it, but like you're close to it. And so I was like, I just want to be healthy. I don't need to be in perfect shape. I don't need to be anything crazy. I just want to be I want to be healthy. So I started jogging, and I started just cutting out stupid bread that I knew I didn't need. And then, like, in that, I began getting exposed to how bad the processed foods that we eat in general were. And I saw the literally almost immediate impact of the combination of jogging and just cutting out of the processed foods. And I was like, this is incredible. And then my wife was like, well, we should go for get rid of our seed oils. And I'm like, I don't know about that. And she was like, hey, and you should get rid of your beer. And I'm like, I don't know about that. And you should take vitamins. And each step along the way, I was like, you're going to, this is just going a little too far. It's a little too crazy, for me. And then every single time, like, but I always feel better. And like, it's always something I want to do. And I'm like, wait a minute, when I feel so much better, I have more energy to do more things. I'm always running around, and like, again, I do sales, I do the podcast, I'm part of my community. I go to synagogue 3 times a day. I'm constantly on the go, and I need every advantage I could get. So like, and so I stopped even thinking about it, like, crazy or not, and I'm just thinking like, oh, how can I be better? Like, how can this help me get, even better and even better than before. So I think that that's great for me to have realized that. But for a lot of people, especially that need a coach or want a coach or like or incentivized to get a coach, I can imagine that it's a uphill battle for you, right? To convince them to start changing their ways, especially if they don't want to do it themselves to begin with necessarily.
So, people that come looking for a coach actually do want to make a change. They don't have the time to just chat to somebody for the sake of chatting to them. And, that one small change leads to the next change, which leads to the next change. And before you realize what you're doing, you're you're in the ecosystem of becoming healthier and healthier and healthier. And as you start feeling stronger and healthier and more capable, and you feel like you're making the right decisions for your body and you can see the results thereof, there's nothing stopping them, right? But it's helping them to break those limiting beliefs that, exactly like that gentleman yesterday, well, if I had one bad meal, that's it, it's broken, I can't carry on. Well, of course you can. You're bigger than that, right? So it's helping breaking, well, I only get to this and then I revert back and I put on those 20 pounds again. Breaking those limiting beliefs, helping them to understand how to read a label, a simple thing like a label. If you can't pronounce it, you shouldn't put it in your body, right?
Hmm.
If it's
That
got
was one of the most sad things that I ever started doing, and it makes everything so much more challenging. It's so
right,
hard.
but we put things in our bodies that are almost nuclear factor level. I mean, why would
Yeah,
you do that?
yeah.
And so when you start helping people to break these limiting beliefs, you help educate them on what they want, understanding what they want, and then helping them to take the steps towards it. And they start seeing the results and they start making themselves a priority. Like your wife said, I'm making myself a priority. Why don't we do this? And you
Hmm.
you got on the program, and together you almost accountability coaches to each other, right? And
Yeah.
yes or no?
Well, I wouldn't say to each other, but I have an accountability coach, yes.
Okay, so you got an accountability coach, and that's what helps you. And the decisions that you're making, and the progress that you're making is going to impact your children's lives as well. So when somebody comes and they start making these changes, and they feel empowered and they feel like they're really making a difference, and the metrics start changing, and they're feeling vibrant and they're feeling healthy, they want to go to the next level. But people do need to be held accountable, and
Hmm.
people do need a sounding board, and then letting them know that they need to self-advocate. So
Hmm.
if you're unwell and you are going to the doctor, and you're seeking medical help, educate yourself, go and do the research, go and ask questions. It helps with you getting to know your body. It helps getting to know whether the person that is taking care of your health alongside you is as invested in you as you are.
Hmm.
So there's so many different levels to the
That's
coaching.
interesting. That's a really, really, that last sentence that you just said. Make sure the person that is across from you is as invested in your health as you are. That's that's people's entire problem with the medical world today, is that we don't feel like that's the case, or people are losing trust in the fact that's the case.
Yeah, exactly. To to find that person, and it's okay if you change a doctor and a doctor and a doctor and a doctor. You keep changing until you find that person that is as invested in you as you are in yourself, because together you've got to navigate the rest of your life, right? And you've got to
Yeah,
make the right decisions for your health.
yeah. I was talking to a doctor. I'll send you the episode that I did with her. I think I told you about this. I think we talked about this. Allison Levitt,
Yeah, I think
and
so.
and we're saying that you need I think you should have a doctor of health and a doctor of medicine. You have a doctor of someone that could prescribe you medications for when you do need it, because there obviously is a need for that. But a doctor of health is someone that cares about your health as much as they care as much as you do, and someone that wants to be, like one of the things that my grandfather, who was a GI for many many years, one of the things that he lamented towards the end of his life was that he lived he one of the things he loved about being a doctor was his relationship to his patients, and towards the end of his career, the hospital wouldn't, and obviously they have to protect themselves, lawsuits all the time, every day, every minute of every day. I wouldn't know what to do if I were their size. Maybe the answer is not to get to their size. I don't know, but but he would lament. And he's like, now I can't even. I'm not even allowed to know who I barely am allowed to know. My patients can't contact me. Like I'm not allowed to go see them if I'm not the doctor on call. He's like, and then they end up having to explain them. And imagine having to explain yourself, your medical history to someone 10 times in 10 years or 5 years. And what if you forget something? What if one doctor knows you better? It's like, oh, wait, didn't you used to smoke 10 years ago and you just, you forgot to bring that up? Or, didn't you say that you started taking X, Y, and Z? And like, oh, right, right, right. But you don't have that opportunity. So many people fall through the cracks otherwise, And so I think that a doctor of health would be, or I guess that's what you call a health coach, I mean, is really what you would want, I guess. But I think that they should be way more regular for a lot of people.
So, I mean, a lot of doctors now do work or have in their practices health coaches for that exact reason.
Yeah, they do.
Is, yeah, people just don't want a script, right? You want to understand what can you do alongside that script or without that script in place to get to your health goals. And to your point, doctors, it's become like a sausage machine. They have to see X amount of patients, and there's so many barriers in place for you to build a natural rapport with that doctor. So it's very, very difficult. But that doesn't negate the fact that the doctor, when he is sitting or she is sitting across from you, listens to you and
Yeah.
allows you to self-advocate and allows you to question and not just be dogmatic. Well, this is
But we
how
don't
we
have,
do.
I don't think we have a lot of either, unfortunately, or at least in the States, because in the States, the health crisis being the way that it is, I would, and I don't want to make it even seem a little bit like I'm putting any kind of blame on anybody in this scenario, but
Of course
the
not.
way that we, especially myself, the way I would think about a doctor is I have a body and a doctor's a person mechanic, and so like, if my arm hurts, then like I go to the doctor and he gives me something and makes my arm feel better, and then I move on with my life, and like I don't think about why my arm hurt. I don't think about what happens after. I don't think how long what the medication is. I'm like, he's a doctor. It's his job to be a person mechanic, and I'm there, and so I spent 28, 27 years of my life not thinking about, doctors as anything but people mechanics. And I think that a lot of people in this country think about them like that. And so the question, I think that I don't think a lot of people are coming at going to a doctor from a place of, is this maintenance for my body, as opposed to like, I just need like a quick fix, and like this is inconvenient for me, so I want to be in and out of here and be better tomorrow because I have to go back to work or take care of my kids or whatever, And so I think that's a bit, and so even doctors that would be willing to listen, aren't even getting clientele or patients that are even sitting and opening up to them necessarily.
Well, I think, a lot of people have shifted to functional medicine doctors, um, looking for that more holistic and whole body approach.
I
And
hope so.
yeah, I mean, I see a lot of people, and people that haven't are very curious and are looking
Yeah.
into it, and are wanting to understand it more. Um, there's a place for traditional doctors. Absolutely, they save lives. They are an incredibly important pillar of our society. But you don't go into a doctor's room with high cholesterol for him just to give you a statin and walk out.
Mhm.
For me, that doctor needs to be educating you on making lifestyle choices, right?
Yes.
About implementing healthy lifestyle changes, exercise, diet, stress management, breath work, um, stress reduction, all these kind of things. And with the number of patients doctors are having to see, they don't have the luxury of doing that. So part of the system allows them to be effective, and part of the system doesn't allow them to be effective. But those in private practice need to take the time to give their patients that kind of level of treatment. It's not about going in for a script. And so if your cholesterol continues to rise, what, you just get a higher dose of medication?
Right. I hope not, but I think a lot of people think so.
So that's my point about self-advocating, you
Yes.
know, is
We need,
pointing
I think
people.
we're hitting a turning point because people, like you said, I think people are. I think that I think it's funny, again, anything political aside, RFK ran for presidency on a platform of we're sick, we should be healthier. And like no one like it's not about Medicaid, it's not about health insurance, it's not about who's paying whose insurance bills or who's not paying whose medical bills or whose student loan bills. He's like, our kids are sick, we're not healthy, we need to change. And like again, political or not, any like it's just fascinating that and not even is it fascinating, it shows that it's in the zeitgeist. Like people are thinking about it, people are aware of that, and people's attention were brought to it so much so that it had a significant sway on an election. And that should hopefully be us. We can read we could put our finger on the pulse of the country and be like, whoa, like that means something. People don't want to feel like crap.
Absolutely. And we live in an age where so much is available to us, right?
Hmm.
Um, we can look into anything we want to look into. We can get as much information as we want to. Every doctor is accessible today via podcasts, via a book, via
Yeah.
a TED talk, a YouTube channel,
Hmm.
whatever else. We have so much available to us. But the surprising thing is so few people know where to look. But that tide is changing. People are becoming more educated, and the more educated people are becoming with regards to their health and being, it's a cliched term, the CEO of their own health, the more empowered they are to push towards change,
Yeah.
wanting change, where Kennedy can stand up and say and do as he has and get
Hmm.
people rallying behind it because people are tired of being sick. People are tired of spending the last 20 years of their life in ill health and not enjoying what, the labors of their fruit are. So people are driving more and more and wanting more and more, and the medical system is going to have to change with them
Yeah.
because people are demanding it.
And people are also myself included, retroactively upset that like this was even allowed to be in the food to begin with. Like that also. Like it's funny. I went to Trader Joe's the other day, and I see my favorite snack, and it's one of those snacks like that survived like the purge in terms of all of them, but like we never examined too closely because it always like had a relatively healthy looking name or label. And I looked at the back, and I'm like, oh man, it hurts my heart to think that I've been putting this in my body. Oh my gosh, I know. And I was like, and
Sugar
like,
is
yeah, and you feel I felt betrayed. I'm like, oh man, I thought you were my friend. I thought these like Thin Mint balls were like my friend. These what are they? The Girl Scout cookies in little bite-sized balls that were just like.
You really thought that was going to be healthy? You were just kidding
Well,
yourself.
I thought that if you put the word real in front of it,
Ah,
that it works out. Can
all
you
the
can we talk a little bit about what it was like growing up in South Africa?
yeah. So growing up in South Africa was it was a beautiful time. Um, we didn't have a
I don't
lot
know
of.
anything about the country, by the way. So you could, I have like, I would love to be educated about generally the country overall. So if you want to put in as much commentary, context, or color, I would love to hear it.
So South Africa is really a beautiful country. It's very small in comparison to the US, but it's very rich in culture. We had a very colonial and very European influence in South Africa, and it is very, very diverse, but in a very positive and beautiful way. Growing up was very much farm to table kind of food. Um, I mean, we of course we went out for dinners, but they were to proper restaurants and proper food. And you if you wanted a hamburger, you had a hamburger at home, and it was with pure ground beef and real lettuce that only lasts for 4 days in your fridge and not for 6 weeks. No genetically modified yet. So growing up
So
very,
it was
very
clean there. It was so food there was much cleaner.
much cleaner,
Okay.
much cleaner. Good farming practices back when I was growing up. Very good quality food. Even now, when I do go back to South Africa to visit, I'm always taken by the quality of the food. And I mean, we export so much. Our fruit is incredible. Our wines are world renowned. Our mountains are Cape Town is world renowned. But growing up was incredibly wholesome, very diverse. As I said, I grew up in the apartheid era of South Africa, so I was very shielded and very privileged in the environment that I grew up in.
Hmm.
And when I had my oldest son was when the tide started turning and democracy came in. And even then, just an incredibly rich country with regards to resources, minerals, um, and diversity of people. So South Africa is a beautiful country. I mean, wildlife and safaris. We call it going to the bush, which is
No
something
way.
we call it, yeah. It's we go to the bush and we absolutely love it, and you're close to nature, and it kind of feeds into what I do. You know, when you find joy and you find beauty, and it fills your soul and it just resonates with you. Um, Going back to South Africa, doing that is just spectacular. Growing up, I mean, I really had a beautiful upbringing, riding my bike in the road and listening to my mother whistle at the end of the driveway. It was time to come home. No cell phones, no anything. Just enjoying being a child. Um, but when my kids were growing up, that wasn't the case. They couldn't ride bicycles in the road. Um,
No.
no. So unfortunately, crime is quite high in South Africa, and the politics is quite challenging in South Africa. So
In
my
what capacity? How is it complicated? How is it difficult? I guess. I just don't know anything
so
about it.
we went from a really strict apartheid era
Hmm.
where it was run by the Nationalist Party to um, the dem when Mandela came out of prison and we moved over to democracy and the ANC came into power. And whilst Mandela was alive, there was so much unity. I don't know if you remember the 2010 World Cup soccer. The
Yeah.
whole world descended on South Africa,
Yeah.
and it was just such an incredible time of happiness and positivity and
There's like
the
25,
future.
30 years of that.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
well, not that many. Um, and so, things started changing, and South Africa's political um, um, narrative
Climate.
was pretty much more one-sided, and this whole unity prospect that we bought into and believed what was going to happen really didn't happen. And
Hmm.
there's huge disparities in the educational system, the government-based educational system and the private school educational system.
Hmm.
And when you only need a 35 or 40% pass rate to pass the subject, for me, that's worrying. You
Right. That's really. You need a 35 or 40% to pass a subject.
yeah, certain subjects, and
Wow.
and that's really a problem. So when you start seeing the disparities in the educational systems, and you realize that my children went to private schools and they had the best of the best education, and the kids that come from underprivileged homes get a government
Yeah.
education system. They don't necessarily always have books. They don't have flushing toilets. They
No
don't,
way.
yeah, they don't always have the right number of desks for every child. Some children have to walk kilometers and kilometers to get to school and back every single day. Um, a lot of young girls are pregnant that are still trying to finish school and have got children in daycare. So it's a hard system, and
Mhm.
it's a beautiful country with so many amazing resources, so much potential, people that, despite their set of circumstances, smile and cannot offer enough of themselves to you. You come across a South African, you will never know warmth and generosity of heart and soul as you would when you come to South Africa. So it's a country that is just so near and dear. As I said to friends now living in the US, my soul is in Africa, in South Africa. My heart's here in the US. But they're two very different countries, and they offer two very different things. And I think as South Africa is changing um, and a coalition government has come into power now, and things start balancing more from a political point of view, I think there will be some very positive changes. Right now, we've got a failing infrastructure, go for major power cuts, the water filtration system, major problems with that.
So is it what? So
Transport's a
what? So
problem.
is it is it bureaucracy and or corruption that's stopping cleaning that up? Is that typical? I mean, it's like that in America, right? You have certain cities in America where you're like, I can't even believe that this looks the way it does, considering what it could look like so easily with just swipe of a pen or a snap of a finger. Snap of a finger. It could really just be like that. It feels the same way there.
Absolutely, and that's why I'm saying as the coalition government is coming into place, and the next few elections, I think, will be very important to start eradicating that kind of behavior and to get infrastructure back to where it needs to be. Um, you can't have people without electricity for days on end for 8 hours a day. How do you feed children? How do you take care of the aged population? I mean, potholes in roads and things like that. So as a South African, my hope and wish is that my prayer that they get to that point, and it's showing promising results, that it's moving in that direction, but it's going to take the next few elections to get to that point, and to get crime under control. When you've got people that are living, the vast majority of the population living under the breadline, and people are desperate, they do desperate things.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, human life doesn't have a price, but it has a price.
It does there. I just
Yeah.
watched. Actually, I just watched, and then we'll go back to this. Why I don't forget it. Is there's a show called Trafficked? Did you ever hear of it? It's on Hulu,
No,
and it's a woman who's an investigative journalist. Her name is Mariana Van Zeller, I think,
okay.
and each season I think is like 10 or 14 episodes of individual cases of underground worlds that she investigates. So she does like fentanyl, selling human body parts,
I've watched
organs.
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And I just showed my class yesterday actually the episode with hired mercenaries, and I believe it was South Africa. I think it was South Africa that she went to. She said it was like the hub of where you could find mercenaries, like you call a cab, like, or people will walk up to you and say, hey, like, do you need a hit done, you know?
yeah. Well, it's not a great reputation to have, right?
No,
That
not great.
Yeah,
But yeah, I guess that's case in point. It's really terrible. It's so sad. It's crazy. It's crazy to think that 4 years ago you came to this country, and like that is like a total parallel reality that like no one in this country would even like really conceive. Like it's so
I
different.
pinch myself. I'll walk down the road to dinner with a girlfriend, and I won't even bat an eyelid. I could never do that in South Africa.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's crazy.
Yeah,
I have friends that say the same thing about Mexico too. By the way, I have friends from Mexico that are like past 6, 7 p.m. Like if they're going to their friend down the block, they're Ubering. Like they're not walking alone at night. They're not doing anything like that. How did because you mentioned coalitions, and I don't how does the government work there in terms of, because I know the only two types of governments I really know are how American government works. I know how the Israeli government kind of works a little bit, even though it's also a shit show. Um, but I do understand the notion. The
governments
only
aren't
time
doing well right now, right?
what?
I say governments are not faring well right now. They're not
No, not
doing well.
You could ask Argentina how they feel. I think they're a little happier, but I know that so in Israel, like they make coalitions, and like there's a certain amount of seats, and each seat belongs to a different party. And then if you want to win, if you don't have enough seats by yourself, you have to make a coalition. But that coalition could collapse at any point if someone pulls out. Then and so elections could technically happen every 6 months, if if that was the case. How does it work in South Africa?
So up and up until this last election was the ANC, the African National Congress Party, and they were the ruling party. Um, and in this last
How often
election,
are elections? How often are they?
every 4 years.
Okay, and a party, and there's a party that's in charge, or a leader of a party that's in
Correct.
charge.
Correct.
Okay.
So, so the ANC was the ruling party, and in this last election, they obviously lost a number of their ballots to not be the ruling party anymore,
Hmm.
but marginally, right? So, every 5 years is an election in South Africa, and so now we've got the DA, which is the Democratic Party, and they have got a certain number of seats in Parliament, and so they are carving out a way how to bring more of the democratic viewpoints and representatives into the government.
And how do you do that? Are they appointed or voted, or how does that work?
They are, so they were the majority winning party out of the percentage that the ANC lost. So
Hmm.
they came in, and then between the ANC and the Democratic Party, they elected various officials into various
Gotcha.
roles. Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Okay, and that's how stuff gets done. So who the officials actually are is not necessarily up to the people. The
No,
people who like to party.
correct.
I guess that's where the room for a lot of corruption comes in, right? Because I mean, do
Yeah.
people bounce from party to party?
No, it's not like the US where sometimes you're Republicans, sometimes you're
Well,
not.
Tulsi Gabbard, right? Tulsi Gabbard went from
Yeah.
Democrat to Republican.
So in South Africa, it's pretty stable. People are either for or against. You don't see much crossing over the line over there at all. What's most important is that the parties are able to work together in order to forge a path forward. South Africa is very rich in natural mineral resources. We export, as I said, wines, and our produce is exceptional, and we have an incredible strong workforce available and readily available labor. So with the right government and the right structures in place,
You
it
have all the
really is
potential in
golden.
the world. Yeah.
It's got all the potential in the world. And again, the most beautiful people.
Yeah, I have to go check it out. I want to go
Yeah.
check it out.
We're going to give
Um,
you a good list of places to go to.
it's a it's a 6 hour time difference from the States
Correct. In summer, 6, and in winter, 7.
because you guys don't do daylight savings
No.
because you're smarter than that.
I still can't figure it out. I'm hoping one day I'll get
The
it.
only thing that I know is that when daylight savings hit, my 2 year old did not went to bed an hour and a half later for the next month. So I did not love that personally,
Yeah.
but I'm sure it exists for a reason. I don't know what it is. Do you know anything about that? Do you know about anything about daylight savings and the effect? I guess it has an effect on your circadian rhythm, right? As to when the sun's coming up, when you feel like you're able to actually like get your day started.
Exactly. So, I mean, one of the ways in order to combat or get into the daylight saving is that when you wake up with the sun and you go and you stand outside in the natural sunlight, you set your circadian rhythm,
Mm.
right? And obviously, your body naturally will start releasing melatonin earlier in the early evening because it's getting darker earlier. So your body naturally changes. It knows what to do. I mean, despite ourselves, our bodies know what they're doing. It can heal itself. It can do a multitude of things. But
We get in the way of our bodies so many
we
times.
we get in the way of our bodies. They know exactly what they're doing. We just pretend we know more. But and you see it with older people and you see it with kids. They naturally go in and out of the daylight saving so much better because their bodies move. They don't fight the time change. They don't fight the sun coming up and going down. So for me, the best thing to do is to go outside as early as you can with the light. In the middle of the day, go outside. Your body knows how to read that as well. And towards the end of the day as well, to kind of get that natural melatonin released. Grounding goes with it. And
Mm.
yeah,
Are you a big grounder?
well, I do believe in it.
So do
So
I. I just
I
ask you,
think there's nothing,
do you
there's
spend
nothing
as much time, like, do you ground as often as possible?
I, I wish I could say yes, I do, but I don't. But the minute I have an opportunity to, I do. And I do when I travel, and my kids and my husband laugh at me. I'm like, take off your shoes, get your toes wiggled in the ground. Let's curl them up. I mean, in South Africa, I don't think we ever wore shoes. I mean, growing up, like a shoe was something you had to wear to church or to go to school. But I mean, we always ran, got to school and our shoes were off and we ran around barefoot. So I've pretty much felt like my whole life I've always seeked out to feel connected to the earth, you know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
slept on a grounding mat for a while to see how that did. And
How'd
so
that go?
it was interesting. I think I was in a bad sleeping phase at the time that I was trying to use it. So to be fair, I don't think I gave it the full opportunity, but I'm forever experimenting. Whatever there's going, I want to try it. I want to feel it. I want to know that it is working or isn't working. I want to see the difference on my body. So I do. I try lots of different things just to see because I can. You know,
Yeah.
our bodies are marvelous things, and I just want to see what works the best and responds the best to.
Yeah, I have to work very hard to get past this, but I hate when I'm dismissive of just like when I hear something and like my immediate instinct is like, nah, like what am I saying? Why am I? Why would I? I don't know anything about a lot of things, you know. Like I don't know what I would be dismissing and why I dismiss it out of hand. It's funny because my mom would always would say things that for years I would laugh at her. You know, I had dry skin on my face when I was in high school, right? Or when I was in college, I had, I had dry skin or dandruff, and she's like, "What you eat? Alcohol." And I'm like, "Don't be ridiculous," you know. And I remember getting so upset. You know, I'm like, "You're saying just give me a doctor." I remember thinking, give me a prescription. I don't want to, like that can't possibly be what the case is. And and then I realized that she was right, and that's things that she got from her mom and things that she got from her mom. And it's actually, I was talking to a student the other day and we were talking about breathing, and just, how important it is to get your breathing under control at different points and, depending what you're trying to accomplish, right? But I was like, breathing is everything. He's like, what do you mean? I said, well, what do you do when you panic? He's like, you you hyperventilate. I was like, and how do you get yourself out of it? What do people tell you to do to calm down? He's like, deep breath. I was like, great. I was like, and now when you're boxing, you're fighting, 'cause he boxes. Like, when you're fighting, what do they tell you to do? He's like, breathe. I was like, when you're jogging, what do they tell you to do? He's like, oh my
Breathe.
God. And I was like, dude, I was like, he goes, because he told me he was having a hard time sleeping. So I was like, if jogging and running and thinking and emotional regulation is all connected to breathing, I bet breathing probably would help you sleeping. And he's like, right. But I don't think that, but when he initially, but I had to explain that concept to him. When I initially told him, are you breathing? Do you focus on how you breathe? He looked at me like I was crazy, And so, like, I think the biggest thing that gets in most people's way is that we are either not curious or we are dismissive. And I think both of those are really, really potentially deadly traits, They can kill you.
They're very limiting, right?
Yeah.
So, and so many times people really do underestimate the value of breathing,
Mhm.
and how many people hold their breath. So when you first said it, I held my breath because you either hyperventilate or you hold your breath. And often you've just got to say to somebody, breathe out, just breathe.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden they realize. And I was actually having a chat to my one son today as well about, he was like, oh, every time I wake up during the night, I said, well, breathe. And he says, okay, I do box breathing. I said, well, no, try this other breathing exercise. Just try that tonight. Maybe that will help, because it's natural to wake up. It's natural to feel, um, in any circumstances in life, stressed or worked out or worried or whatever it is. And breath is your friend.
Yeah.
Breath is really your friend. It can help regulate your emotions, which
Yeah.
is critical.
Yeah, yeah. I want to start. I have to. My wife just went last night with her sister to a breathwork class, and she came back and she told me I have to do it. And we don't have time for this right now, but when we do another episode, if we do another episode, we'll you can talk more about it. But I'm a big advocate of psychedelics, and so when my wife told me that, and I've heard before that breathwork gets you to the same place, and I'm curious and a little nervous to try it out, but I have to I want to get myself to get there.
Well, I
Again,
mean,
it's the same thing.
yeah,
It's a fear of the it's a it's not even skepticism, just like the new thing. I just think I don't want to do something new, but I know I want to.
you're happy to do psychedelics and you're happy to do weed, but you're worried about breathing. I think we need to
Well,
put
I
that
don't know
into
where it's gonna take
context.
me because I don't know where it's gonna take me. Like what the
Well, I've
like.
only experienced it once. I we had like a forum situation, and we brought in a resource, and we went from a meditation into this breath work. And I've never done breathing like this for 10 minutes solid in my life. And I cannot tell you the sense of euphoria I had. I cried, I hyperventilated, I felt a rush of emotions like I've never had. I've never experienced anything in my life what I experienced in that 10 minutes of breath work.
Yeah,
Um, so there's a lot of power in it.
I
But
know.
again,
I got to do it.
curiosity
I want to do it.
and not being dismissive of trying all these things. These things are all good and natural and healthy. And it's like you've got to try to understand what works and doesn't work for you. So, on your path to longevity and living young and vibrantly and full of vitality, you've got to try all these different modalities and just stick with what works. And if it doesn't work, tried it, move on.
I know it's gonna work. I have to do it.
Put it
Candice,
into a schedule.
thank you so much for the time. Thanks so much for getting back to me and for agreeing to do this. It's so much fun, and I think this is a really, really, really thoughtful and fun conversation. Exactly the kind that I really was looking forward to. So I hope to be in touch. There's actually like 5 or 6 different topics that I'd written down that we didn't even get to, but maybe we will do this again sometime. I
Amazing.
hope to be in touch, and I will post this episode will probably be posted on Monday, if that's okay with
Okay.
you. But thank you so much. This is so nice talking, so nice meeting you, and I hope to be in touch. All right.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much for the time.
This is so much
Take
fun.
care.
Take care. Have a good one.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.